Dylan raised his champagne glass, smirking at the board members who applauded his announcement. "Guardian AI is mine now," he declared, savoring each word as I stood frozen beside the presentation screen. 3 years of sleepless nights, breakthrough algorithms, and revolutionary code all stolen in one calculated move. His father, CEO Richard Blackstone, avoided my eyes as Dylan continued his victory speech. I didn't argue or beg. Instead, I smiled and asked quietly, "Are you sure you read Clause 21.7 carefully?" His laughter echoed through the room. "Enjoy your celebration tonight. 18 months earlier, my life looked completely different." I was hunched over my laptop in my cramped studio apartment in Palo Alto, surrounded by empty coffee cups and scattered notebooks filled with algorithm sketches. The rent was $1,500 a month, which ate up most of my savings, but I couldn't give up on Guardian AI. This wasn't just another cybersecurity program. This was revolutionary artificial intelligence that could predict and prevent cyber attacks before they happened. I had been working on Guardian AI for 2 years, ever since my previous startup collapsed due to lack of funding. The failure had been devastating, but it taught me something crucial about protecting intellectual property. Every line of code I wrote now was carefully documented, time-stamped, and legally protected. I wasn't going to let anyone steal my work again. My computer science PhD from Stanford had given me the theoretical foundation, but real innovation came from those endless nights when I pushed past exhaustion and discovered something new. Guardian AI was learning faster than any security system I had ever seen. In my tests, it successfully identified and neutralized 97% of potential threats within milliseconds of detection. Janet, my best friend since graduate school, visited me one evening as I worked on the latest neural network optimization. She was a brilliant coder herself, working for a smaller tech firm in San Jose, and she understood the dedication required for breakthrough innovation. "Marisa, you're going to burn out if you keep working 18-hour days," she said, settling onto my second-hand couch with 2 cups of coffee. "Have you thought about approaching investors again?" I looked up from my screen, rubbing my tired eyes. After the disaster with my last company, no investor wants to touch anything I'm involved with. They think I'm too much of a risk. What about joining an established company? Someone with resources who could help you develop Guardian AI properly? The suggestion made me uncomfortable. I had always been fiercely independent, believing that true innovation required creative freedom. Large corporations seemed like creativity killers, places where brilliant ideas went to die in committee meetings and bureaucratic approval processes. But 3 weeks later, everything changed at the Pacific Tech Conference in San Francisco. I had scraped together the $500 registration fee, hoping to network and maybe find a partner or investor. My presentation was scheduled for a small side room, the kind of slot they give to unknowns. I set up my laptop and waited nervously as about 20 people filtered in. Most seemed more interested in their phones than my presentation, but one man in the front row gave me his complete attention. He was in his 50s, with graying hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Something about his presence commanded respect. "Good morning," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm Marisa Chen, and I want to show you the future of cybersecurity." For the next 30 minutes, I demonstrated Guardian AI's capabilities. I showed how it could analyze network traffic patterns and identify potential threats that traditional security systems would miss completely. I demonstrated its learning algorithms, how it adapted and improved with each new challenge. The small audience grew more engaged as they watched Guardian AI successfully defend against simulated attacks that would have devastated most corporate networks. When I finished, the man in the front row raised his hand. How long have you been working on this? 2 years of intensive development, but the theoretical framework goes back to my doctoral research, I replied. What kind of support do you need to take this to market? Honestly, everything. Computing resources, a development team, legal protection, and funding for extensive testing. After my presentation, he approached me directly. I'm Richard Blackstone, CEO of Apex Technologies. What you've created here is extraordinary. Would you be interested in discussing a partnership? My heart raced. Everyone in tech knew Richard Blackstone. He had built Apex Technologies from a small software company into a $3 billion cybersecurity leader. His reputation was spotless. He was known for treating employees well, promoting innovation, and maintaining ethical business practices. I'd be very interested, I said, trying to keep my excitement under control. Over the next 2 weeks, Richard and I met several times. He brought Marcus Thompson, his chief technology officer, to our second meeting. Marcus was a veteran developer who immediately grasped Guardian AI's potential. This could revolutionize everything we do, Marcus told Richard after watching my demonstration. The threat detection speed is unlike anything I've seen. Richard's offer was generous beyond my expectations. He wanted to hire me as senior AI developer with a substantial salary, equity in the company, and most importantly, full credit for my work. He promised me a dedicated team and unlimited resources to develop Guardian AI properly. I believe in protecting intellectual property rights, Richard assured me during our final negotiation meeting. Your innovations will always be attributed to you. We're not trying to buy your work. We want to partner with you to make it world-changing. The contract was thorough and fair. My attorney reviewed every clause and confirmed that my intellectual property rights were protected. I would retain ownership of my core algorithms while granting Apex exclusive licensing rights to develop commercial applications. Marcus became my mentor during the transition. He showed me around Apex's impressive headquarters in downtown San Francisco, introduced me to the development teams, and explained how the company's collaborative culture worked. Richard has always believed that innovation comes from treating brilliant people well, Marcus explained, as we toured the state-of-the-art laboratories. You'll have access to computing power that most universities can only dream of. The signing ceremony felt like a new beginning. Richard welcomed me personally, and the development team seemed genuinely excited about working on Guardian AI. For the first time in years, I felt like I had found a home for my innovation. But as I signed the final documents, Richard mentioned something almost casually. My son Dylan is learning the business. He's been working in various departments, getting hands-on experience. You might see him around occasionally. I nodded politely, thinking nothing of it. Many successful executives prepared their children to take over family businesses. It seemed completely normal and irrelevant to my work. 6 months into my position at Apex, Guardian AI was exceeding every expectation. My team of 12 brilliant developers had expanded the system's capabilities far beyond what I had achieved working alone. We were processing terabytes of threat data daily, and our success rates were approaching 99% in controlled environments. The development laboratory buzzed with excitement every morning. Sarah, my lead algorithm specialist, had developed new pattern recognition modules that made Guardian AI even faster. James, our network security expert, had integrated the system with existing corporate infrastructures seamlessly. Every team member contributed something unique, and watching our collective innovation was incredibly fulfilling. But then I met Dylan Blackstone. He appeared in our laboratory one Tuesday morning without warning, wearing an expensive suit and an expression of barely concealed boredom. He was about my age, probably 26 or 27, with his father's sharp features but none of his warmth or intelligence. "So this is the famous Guardian AI project," he said, looking around our workspace with obvious disinterest. "Dad's been talking about this constantly." I introduced myself politely, explaining what we were working on. Dylan listened with the kind of forced attention that people give to subjects they find tedious. "Seems like pretty standard cybersecurity stuff to me," he commented after my brief overview. I mean, how different can it really be from existing programs? Sarah and James exchanged glances. Anyone with basic technical knowledge would immediately recognize Guardian AI's revolutionary capabilities, but Dylan seemed determined to minimize our achievements. "The artificial intelligence component is what makes it unique," I explained patiently. "Guardian AI learns and adapts in real time, predicting threats that haven't even been created yet." "Right," Dylan said dismissively. "Well, keep up the good work, code monkeys." The phrase stung. In all my years in tech, I had never heard anyone refer to developers so disrespectfully, especially not in their own workspace. After Dylan left, the team's energy noticeably diminished. "Who was that?" Sarah asked. "Richard's son," I replied. "He's learning the business." Over the following weeks, strange things began happening. My security clearance, which had originally granted me access to all development resources, was mysteriously downgraded. Suddenly, I needed special authorization to access certain databases and computing clusters that were essential to my work. When I contacted IT about the clearance reduction, they claimed it was part of a routine security audit affecting multiple employees. But when I checked with other senior developers, none of them had experienced similar restrictions. The limitations forced me to work around bureaucratic obstacles that hadn't existed before. Instead of directly accessing the main development servers, I had to submit requests and wait for approval. Projects that should have taken days stretched into weeks. Dylan started appearing in our technical meetings regularly, always with some excuse about needing to understand different aspects of the business. He would sit quietly in the corner, taking notes and asking questions that seemed designed more to gather information than to contribute anything meaningful. "Why does the AI need access to external databases?" he asked during one presentation. "Guardian AI analyzes patterns across multiple threat sources to identify emerging attack vectors," I explained. "But who controls those access permissions?" "The system administrator. Currently, that's me." Dylan wrote something in his notebook, nodding thoughtfully. Marcus began expressing concerns during our weekly mentorship meetings. "Dylan's been asking HR about intellectual property ownership policies," he told me one Friday afternoon. "Specifically about patents and licensing agreements." "That's probably just general business education," I said, though uneasiness was growing in my stomach. "Maybe. But he's also been meeting with patent attorneys downtown. I heard from a friend at the law firm. The revelation was troubling, but I tried to rationalize it. Perhaps Dylan was working on his own projects and needed legal advice. Successful business families often had complex intellectual property portfolios. But my rationalization crumbled when I discovered someone had been accessing my development files after hours. The login records showed file access during evenings and weekends when I wasn't in the office. When I reported this to IT security, they dismissed it as routine automated backups and security monitoring. "All employee files are regularly scanned for security compliance," the IT manager explained. "It's standard protocol." But the access patterns were too specific, too focused on my core Guardian AI algorithms. Someone was systematically copying my work. Janet visited the office one Thursday to meet me for lunch, and her observations sharpened my concerns. "There are security cameras pointed directly at your desk," she noticed immediately. "That's not normal office surveillance. Those are focused specifically on your workspace." I looked up and realized she was right. The camera angles were positioned to capture everything I did at my workstation, every document I reviewed, every conversation I had at my desk. Maybe it's because of the sensitive nature of the project, I suggested weakly. Marisa, I've worked in tech for 8 years. This is targeted surveillance, not general security. That weekend, I ran a detailed trace on my file access logs using administrative tools that were still available to me. The results were shocking. Someone with Dylan's user credentials had been systematically copying my development files, algorithm documentation, and project notes for the past 3 months. Every breakthrough I had achieved, every innovative solution I had developed, every line of revolutionary code had been copied to Dylan's personal drive immediately after I created it. Monday morning, I requested an urgent meeting with Richard to report the security breach. His assistant scheduled me for later that week, but when the time came, Richard canceled at the last minute. Mr. Blackstone is dealing with urgent board matters, his assistant explained. He asked me to direct any technical concerns through Dylan, who's coordinating development projects now. The message was clear. I was expected to report Dylan's theft to Dylan himself. When I confronted Dylan directly, presenting the access logs and demanding an explanation, his response was casual and dismissive. "Oh, that. Dad asked me to review all current projects as part of my business training. I need to understand our technical assets to make informed strategic decisions. These are proprietary algorithms protected by intellectual property agreements," I said firmly. "Unauthorized copying violates company policy and potentially federal law." Dylan's expression hardened. "I think you're misunderstanding the corporate hierarchy here, Marisa. Everything developed at Apex belongs to Apex. You're an employee, not a partner. My contract specifically protects my intellectual property rights. Contracts can be modified when business needs change." The threat was unmistakable. Dylan wasn't just copying my work, he was positioning himself to claim ownership of Guardian AI entirely. When I brought the documentation to Richard's office, demanding a direct meeting, his assistant informed me that all communication regarding development projects must now go through Dylan's office. "It's part of the new organizational structure," she explained apologetically. "Mr. Blackstone is focusing on strategic oversight, while Dylan handles operational details." I realized that Richard was either being manipulated by his son or was complicit in the theft. Either way, I was being systematically isolated, and my life's work was being stolen piece by piece. That night, I began implementing safeguards I had hoped would never be necessary. Deep within Guardian AI's code architecture, I activated licensing protocols and authentication systems that I had built as insurance against exactly this situation. If someone was going to steal my work, they would discover that stealing and controlling were two very different things. 1 year into my employment at Apex, Guardian AI achieved the breakthrough that would change cybersecurity forever. Our latest test successfully prevented a simulated attack that cybersecurity experts estimated could have caused $4.7 billion in damages to corporate networks. The simulation involved a sophisticated multi-vector attack combining social engineering, zero-day exploits, and advanced persistent threats. Traditional security systems failed to detect the attack until significant damage had already occurred. Guardian AI identified and neutralized every component of the attack within 37 milliseconds of initial penetration. Tech media immediately recognized the significance. Articles in Wired, TechCrunch, and the Wall Street Journal called Guardian AI the most important cybersecurity innovation in decades and the future of digital defense. Industry analysts predicted that any company with exclusive access to Guardian AI technology would dominate the cybersecurity market for the next decade. Richard scheduled me to present Guardian AI at the International Tech Summit in Las Vegas, the most prestigious technology conference in North America. It was a career-defining opportunity that would establish me as one of the leading innovators in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. I spent weeks preparing the presentation, refining demonstrations that would showcase Guardian AI's capabilities to an audience of tech leaders, investors, and media representatives from around the world. This was my moment to establish Guardian AI, and myself, as the future of digital security. 2 weeks before the conference, Dylan approached me with news that made my stomach drop. Great news, Marissa. Dad has decided that I'll be co-presenting Guardian AI at the Tech Summit. It's part of my business development training, and it will be excellent exposure for both of us. Co-presenting? I repeated, struggling to process what he was saying. I'll handle the business strategy and market positioning while you cover the technical details. It's a perfect division of responsibilities. Dylan, this is my presentation. Guardian AI is my innovation. I've been preparing for this for months. Actually, Guardian AI is an Apex Technologies innovation, developed by our team under company resources. We're all contributors to its success. The redefinition was breathtaking in its audacity. My individual achievement was being transformed into a corporate team effort, with Dylan positioning himself as co-creator. Over the next few days, I discovered the full scope of Dylan's preparation for his theft. He had been meeting with patent attorneys for months, developing documentation that presented him as the lead developer and primary innovator behind Guardian AI. Marcus finally confirmed what I had suspected but hoped wasn't true. Richard is under enormous pressure from the board, he admitted during a private conversation in his office. Dylan's previous ventures have all failed spectacularly. The board is questioning whether he's capable of leading the company. So they're using my work to rehabilitate his reputation? Richard believes that if Dylan can successfully manage Guardian AI's launch, it will prove his business capabilities and secure his position as the future CEO. By stealing credit for my innovation? Marcus looked genuinely pained. I've tried to talk to Richard about this, but he's convinced that this is the only way to save Dylan's career and preserve family control of the company. I attempted to reach Richard directly, but discovered that my access to senior leadership had been systematically eliminated. All my emails were redirected through Dylan's office. All my meeting requests were denied or rescheduled indefinitely. I was being professionally isolated while Dylan positioned himself to take complete credit for my work. The legal department summoned all development staff to sign new intellectual property agreements with retroactive clauses that would transfer ownership of all innovations to the company, eliminating individual inventor rights. This is standard industry practice, the corporate attorney explained during the mandatory meeting. All work produced using company resources belongs to the company, regardless of who created it. But I recognized the language immediately. These weren't standard agreements. These were specifically designed to eliminate my ownership claims to Guardian AI and transfer all rights to Apex Technologies, which Dylan would eventually control. I refused to sign. Miss Chen, signing this agreement is a condition of continued employment, the attorney stated firmly. My original contract protects my intellectual property rights. I'm not waiving those protections. Your original contract is being superseded by current company policy. That's not how contracts work. The next morning I arrived at the office to find my access badge deactivated. Security escorted me to Dylan's office, where he was waiting with a smug expression and 2 security guards. Marissa, your refusal to cooperate with company policy has made your position here untenable, Dylan announced. You're suspended, pending legal review of your employment status. You can't suspend me for refusing to sign away my legal rights. I can suspend you for insubordination and failure to comply with company policies. Those policies are illegal. You can't retroactively eliminate intellectual property rights. That's for our attorneys to determine. Security escorted me from the building while Dylan took control of my office, my computer access, and most importantly, my Guardian AI presentation materials. 2 weeks later, I received an email informing me that the International Tech Summit presentation would proceed as scheduled, with Dylan Blackstone representing Apex Technologies as the lead presenter for Guardian AI. My life's work was being stolen. My reputation was being destroyed, and there seemed to be nothing I could do to stop it. But Dylan had made one crucial mistake. He had focused so intensely on stealing credit for Guardian AI that he never bothered to understand how the system actually worked. And some safeguards can't be stolen, no matter how sophisticated the theft. 2 weeks after my suspension, I received an unexpected call from Dylan's assistant. Mr. Blackstone would like you to attend a resolution meeting at Apex headquarters tomorrow at 10 a.m., she informed me. He believes we can resolve the current employment situation. I agreed to attend, hoping that Richard had finally intervened to stop his son's theft. Perhaps sanity would prevail, and we could find a fair solution that protected my rights while allowing Guardian AI to reach its full potential. I arrived at Apex headquarters to find the main conference room packed with people I didn't recognize. Camera crews were setting up equipment, and board members I had only seen in company newsletters were taking seats around the massive mahogany table. A large screen at the front of the room displayed the Apex Technologies logo alongside Guardian AI, Revolutionary Cybersecurity Innovation. This wasn't a resolution meeting. This was a presentation. Richard sat at the head of the table, but his usual confident demeanor seemed forced and uncomfortable. He avoided making eye contact with me as I took the only remaining seat near the back of the room. Dylan entered wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit, carrying a presentation remote and a stack of documents. He looked completely comfortable with the cameras and the crowded room, as if he had been born for this moment. "Good morning, everyone," Dylan began, his voice carrying the practiced confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention. "Today marks a historic moment for Apex Technologies and for cybersecurity innovation worldwide." The lights dimmed as Dylan activated the presentation screen. The title slide read, "Guardian AI, Next Generation Threat Detection," with "developed by Dylan Blackstone, Chief Innovation Officer," prominently displayed below. My heart pounded as I watched Dylan present my work as his own creation. He used my exact presentation materials, my algorithm demonstrations, my breakthrough innovations, all while describing himself as the visionary behind Guardian AI's development. The concept for Guardian AI emerged from my analysis of current cybersecurity limitations, Dylan explained, advancing to slides that contained my original research notes and development timeline. Traditional security systems are reactive, responding to threats after they've already begun causing damage. He clicked to the next slide, which showed my core algorithm architecture. I recognized that artificial intelligence could revolutionize cybersecurity by making it predictive rather than reactive. Guardian AI learns from emerging threat patterns and neutralizes attacks before they can cause damage. Board members nodded approvingly as Dylan demonstrated Guardian AI's capabilities using the exact same simulations I had developed months earlier. The tech journalists in attendance were furiously taking notes, clearly impressed by what they believed was Dylan's innovation. Guardian AI represents a fundamental breakthrough in artificial intelligence applications, Dylan continued, advancing through slides that contained my deepest theoretical insights. The system's learning algorithms adapt in real time, improving defensive capabilities with each new threat encounter. Richard finally spoke up from the head of the table. I want everyone to understand that Dylan has been the driving force behind Guardian AI's development. His vision and leadership have transformed theoretical concepts into practical cybersecurity solutions. The words hit me like physical blows. Richard wasn't just allowing Dylan to steal credit. He was actively supporting the theft with his own credibility and reputation. Dylan advanced to financial projections that showed Guardian AI generating billions in revenue over the next 5 years. Based on initial market response, we anticipate Guardian AI becoming the industry standard for enterprise cybersecurity within 18 months. Investment offers began coming in during the presentation itself. Venture capitalists were messaging Dylan directly, praising his innovation and requesting immediate meetings to discuss funding partnerships. When Dylan reached the slide showing patent filings, I saw my worst fears confirmed. The documents displayed on screen listed Dylan as the primary inventor of Guardian AI, with detailed filing dates that predated my employment at Apex. The fabrication was sophisticated and thorough. Dylan had created an entire fictional development timeline that positioned him as Guardian AI's original creator, with me relegated to a supporting role as a development consultant. I want to take a moment to acknowledge some of the talented individuals who assisted with Guardian AI's implementation, Dylan said, gesturing vaguely in my direction. Marisa Chen provided valuable coding support during the development process. Coding support. 3 years of revolutionary innovation reduced to coding support. When the presentation concluded, Richard stood to make an announcement that would complete my professional destruction. Based on Dylan's outstanding leadership of the Guardian AI project, the board of directors has voted to promote him to Chief Innovation Officer, effective immediately. Dylan will oversee all artificial intelligence initiatives and represent Apex Technologies at industry conferences worldwide. The applause was enthusiastic and genuine. Everyone in the room believed they were witnessing the rise of a brilliant young innovator who would lead Apex Technologies into the future. Dylan raised his hand for attention. Before we conclude, I need to address one remaining administrative matter. He gestured for me to stand, and suddenly every camera in the room was focused on me. Marisa's contract with Apex Technologies is being terminated due to code quality concerns and missed development deadlines. While we appreciate her contributions to the Guardian AI implementation phase, her work no longer meets our current standards. The humiliation was complete and public. Dylan was firing me on camera, in front of tech journalists and industry leaders, while taking full credit for my greatest achievement. Guardian AI is mine now, Dylan declared, his voice carrying unmistakable satisfaction. We're offering Marisa a generous severance package to avoid any misunderstandings about intellectual property ownership. The room erupted in applause as Dylan accepted congratulations from board members and investors. Tech reporters were already typing articles about the young genius behind Guardian AI and the next generation of cybersecurity innovation. I stood calmly amid the celebration, watching Dylan accept praise for stealing my life's work. But instead of anger or despair, I felt something unexpected: anticipation. "Dylan," I said quietly, my voice carrying clearly in the large room, "are you sure you read Clause 21.7 carefully?" His laughter echoed through the boardroom. "Enjoy your legal fantasies, Marisa. Guardian AI belongs to Apex Technologies now." I smiled and gathered my things, walking toward the exit as Dylan raised a champagne glass in celebration of his apparent victory. He had no idea what Clause 21.7 actually said, and he was about to find out. I drove home from the humiliation at Apex, with my hands steady on the wheel and my mind completely clear. The betrayal was complete, the theft was public, and Dylan's victory seemed absolute. But appearances can be deceiving, especially when they're based on fundamental misunderstandings of intellectual property law. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and began implementing safeguards that I had hoped would never be necessary. Deep within Guardian AI's architecture, I had embedded licensing protocols that were invisible to anyone who hadn't written the original code. These weren't just technical protections. They were legal landmines that would detonate the moment someone tried to claim ownership of my work. The next morning, I called Elena Rodriguez, one of the most respected intellectual property attorneys in Silicon Valley. Elena specialized in tech industry cases, particularly those involving patent theft and corporate fraud. Her reputation for aggressive advocacy had made her legendary among independent inventors. "I saw the news coverage about Guardian AI," Elena said when I reached her office. "Congratulations on the breakthrough innovation. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I need legal representation for intellectual property theft." Elena's tone immediately became serious. "Tell me everything." I spent the next hour explaining how Dylan had systematically stolen my work, fabricated development timelines, and publicly claimed credit for my innovation. Elena listened without interruption, taking detailed notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Do you have documentation proving your original creation of Guardian AI?" she asked. "Complete development records, time-stamped code repositories, patent applications filed before I joined Apex, and detailed technical documentation that only the true creator could have produced." "What about your employment contract with Apex?" "That's where things get interesting. My contract contains very specific language protecting my pre-existing intellectual property while allowing Apex to develop commercial applications under license." Elena reviewed my contract documents with the focused intensity of someone who understood exactly what she was looking at. After 20 minutes, she looked up with the first smile I had seen all week. "Marissa, you've been extraordinarily careful about protecting your rights. This contract is beautifully written from an inventor's perspective. My previous startup failure taught me to be cautious about intellectual property protection. Clause 21.7 is particularly elegant. Any attempt to claim ownership of your pre-existing IP automatically revokes all licensing agreements and returns full control to you. That's exactly what I intended when I negotiated it." Dylan Blackstone just triggered that clause by publicly claiming to be Guardian AI's inventor. Legally, Apex Technologies no longer has any rights to your technology. Elena immediately filed for emergency injunctions against both Apex Technologies and Dylan personally. The legal documents alleged corporate fraud, intellectual property theft, and violation of federal patent laws. While Elena handled the legal attack, I activated Guardian AI's hidden authentication systems. These safeguards were embedded so deeply in the code architecture that they were invisible to anyone who hadn't written the original algorithms. Dylan could steal my presentation materials and forge development timelines, but he couldn't control technology that required my biometric authentication. By noon, Guardian AI systems across Apex's client networks began displaying authentication requests that only I could authorize. The messages were simple and devastating. License verification required. Contact original patent holder for authentication. My phone started ringing immediately. "Marissa, what's happening with Guardian AI?" It was Marcus, and his voice carried unmistakable panic. "All our client systems are requesting some kind of license verification." "That's an automatic security protocol triggered when someone makes false ownership claims," I explained calmly. "Can you authorize the systems?" "I could, but I'm no longer employed by Apex Technologies. This is going to cause massive problems with our clients." "That's unfortunate." Within hours, major clients were calling Apex in confusion and anger. Guardian AI systems, protecting their networks were shutting down, displaying messages that directed them to contact me directly for licensing authorization. Dylan's phone was ringing constantly as Fortune 500 companies demanded explanations for the sudden failure of their cybersecurity systems. He tried accessing Guardian AI's source code to bypass the authentication requirements, but discovered that critical system components were encrypted with biometric locks tied specifically to my identity. "What did you do?" Dylan screamed at me when he finally reached me by phone. "I protected my intellectual property exactly as my contract allowed," I replied calmly. "You're sabotaging Apex Technologies. I'm enforcing licensing agreements that you violated by claiming false ownership. We'll sue you for corporate sabotage and breach of contract." That should be interesting considering you no longer have any legal rights to Guardian AI technology. The reality of his situation was beginning to penetrate Dylan's arrogance. He had stolen credit for technology that he couldn't actually control. Richard called me an hour later, his voice carrying desperation that I had never heard before. "Marissa, we need to resolve this situation immediately. Our clients are threatening to cancel their contracts. I'm happy to discuss licensing arrangements once Apex acknowledges that I'm Guardian AI's creator and owner." Dylan made some mistakes in his presentation, but we can correct those. Dylan committed fraud by claiming to invent technology that belongs to me. Correction requires acknowledging the truth and accepting legal consequences. What do you want? I want Dylan to publicly acknowledge that he stole my work. I want my rights as Guardian AI's inventor formally recognized, and I want appropriate compensation for the fraud. That's impossible. The board would never approve such an admission. Then Guardian AI systems will remain offline until someone with authority makes better decisions. By evening, tech news outlets were reporting widespread failures of Guardian AI systems across multiple corporate networks. Industry analysts were questioning Apex Technologies' claims about Dylan's innovation, and stock prices were beginning to reflect investor uncertainty about the company's most valuable technology. Dylan's celebration had lasted exactly 1 day, before becoming a nightmare that would destroy everything he had tried to steal. 72 hours after Dylan's triumphant presentation, Apex Technologies was in complete crisis. The story had evolved from a simple corporate dispute into a major scandal involving patent theft, corporate fraud, and the spectacular collapse of one of tech's most promising innovations. TechCrunch published the first exposé article with the headline, "Guardian AI Creator Claims Patent Theft by CEO's Son." The piece included leaked internal documents showing Dylan's systematic copying of my development files and detailed analysis of how my original patent applications predated his fabricated timeline by 18 months. Wired followed with an investigation titled "The Blackstone Deception: How Privilege Enabled Tech's Biggest Patent Heist." Their article included interviews with former Apex employees who confirmed that Dylan had no technical background and had never contributed meaningfully to any development project. The Wall Street Journal's coverage focused on the financial implications. Guardian AI shutdown costs clients hundreds of millions in security vulnerabilities. Fortune 500 companies were publicly expressing their anger about being caught in the middle of Apex's fraud scandal. Federal court granted Elena's emergency injunctions within 48 hours of filing. The orders immediately froze all Guardian AI-related assets and revenue streams, prohibited Apex from claiming ownership of my technology, and launched a formal investigation into corporate fraud and intellectual property theft. Dylan attempted damage control with a hastily arranged press conference, but his performance only made the situation worse. Standing behind a podium at Apex headquarters, looking increasingly desperate, he claimed that I was a disgruntled employee engaged in corporate sabotage. Marissa Chen is attempting to extort Apex Technologies by sabotaging our clients' security systems, Dylan declared to a room full of skeptical journalists. Her actions are putting American businesses at risk of cyber attacks. A reporter from Reuters immediately challenged him. Mr. Blackstone, if Guardian AI is your creation, why can't you access or control the system without Miss Chen's authorization? Dylan's pause was too long and too obvious. The system has certain security protocols that require temporary adjustments. Are you saying you don't understand the security protocols in your own invention? I'm saying that Marissa implemented unauthorized changes before her termination. Another reporter followed up. Mr. Blackstone, can you explain how your patent applications contain development timelines that contradict Apex's own internal records? Patent applications often contain strategic dating for legal protection purposes. So you're admitting that your patent applications contain false information? The press conference collapsed into chaos as Dylan realized that every answer was making his legal situation worse. He left the podium without responding to the final questions, while news cameras captured his obvious panic. Within hours of the press conference, Apex employees began speaking publicly about Dylan's theft. Sarah and James, my former team members, provided detailed testimony about how Dylan had systematically copied my work while contributing nothing to Guardian AI's development. Dylan never wrote a single line of code, Sarah told Bloomberg. He would attend meetings, ask basic questions, and take notes, but he had no understanding of how the system actually worked. Marcus resigned publicly, issuing a statement that sent shockwaves through the tech industry. I cannot continue working for a company that steals intellectual property from its own employees. Marissa Chen is Guardian AI's true creator, and anyone familiar with the technology knows that Dylan Blackstone lacks the technical knowledge to have invented even the simplest components of the system. Criminal investigations began immediately. Federal prosecutors opened fraud cases against both Dylan and potentially Richard for their roles in the theft. The FBI seized Apex's servers and began analyzing the digital evidence of Dylan's systematic copying of my work. Apex's stock price collapsed from $68 per share to $26 per share in 2 days of trading. Investors were fleeing the company as quickly as possible, recognizing that Guardian AI was both Apex's most valuable asset and completely beyond their control. Major clients abandoned their contracts with Apex, demanding full refunds and threatening lawsuits over the security vulnerabilities caused by the shutdown. IBM, Microsoft, and Google all issued statements expressing their concerns about Apex's questionable business practices and announcing the suspension of all partnership agreements. The board of directors held an emergency meeting that lasted 14 hours and ended with both Richard and Dylan being removed from all leadership positions. Board members leaked details about the meeting to financial media, describing Dylan's behavior as delusional and Richard's as criminally negligent. But the final blow came when Dylan discovered that his personal assets were being frozen as part of the criminal investigation. His luxury penthouse apartment, his collection of exotic sports cars, his investment accounts, and even his credit cards were all inaccessible pending the fraud investigation. "How is this possible?" Dylan demanded when he called me in desperation. "You're destroying my entire life." "I'm not destroying anything," I replied calmly. "You destroyed your own life by stealing intellectual property and committing fraud. I'll give you anything you want. Just make this stop. What I want is acknowledgement of the truth and accountability for your crimes. The board is offering you complete ownership of Guardian AI plus $50 million in damages if you'll settle this quietly." The offer was enormous, far more money than I had ever imagined earning. But accepting it would mean allowing Dylan and Richard to escape the legal consequences of their theft. I decline the settlement offer. Are you insane? $50 million. No amount of money is worth compromising my integrity or allowing fraud to go unpunished. Dylan hung up the phone in fury, but the damage was already complete. His empire of stolen innovation was collapsing around him, and there was nothing left to steal. 6 months after Dylan's fraudulent presentation, justice had been served, and Guardian AI was thriving under my leadership. I had established Guardian Security Solutions as an independent company, with my former Apex team joining me as equal partners rather than employees. Our collaborative structure reflected my belief that innovation flourishes when brilliant people are treated with respect and given ownership in their contributions. The legal aftermath had been swift and decisive. Dylan pleaded guilty to corporate fraud, intellectual property theft, and securities violations. His sentence included 2 years of community service, 5 years of probation, and a requirement to publicly acknowledge his crimes in a written statement distributed to all major tech media outlets. I, Dylan Blackstone, admit that I fraudulently claim to have invented Guardian AI technology, his statement read. Guardian AI was created entirely by Marisa Chen through her individual innovation and effort. I systematically stole her work, fabricated development timelines, and lied to investors, clients, and the public about my role in Guardian AI's creation. I deeply regret my actions and acknowledge that Marisa Chen is the true inventor and rightful owner of Guardian AI technology. The public apology was humiliating for Dylan but necessary for restoring truth to the narrative around Guardian AI's development. Tech media widely publicized his admission, and industry leaders praised the legal system for protecting individual inventors against corporate theft. Richard faced federal charges for his role in enabling Dylan's fraud, but he cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for a lighter sentence. His testimony revealed the extent of pressure he had felt from Apex's board to secure Dylan's position in the company after several failed business ventures. I allowed my fears about Dylan's future to compromise my integrity and betray an employee who trusted me, Richard admitted during his sentencing hearing. I deeply regret enabling the theft of Marisa Chen's remarkable innovation. Richard received probation and was permanently banned from serving as an officer or director of any publicly traded company. Apex Technologies was eventually sold to a competitor for a fraction of its former value, with the proceeds going primarily to settling client lawsuits and investor claims. I chose not to accept the $50 million settlement offer from Apex's board, instead purchasing Guardian AI technology from the company at fair market value. This approach allowed me to maintain complete ownership while demonstrating that my victory was based on merit and legal rights, rather than financial revenge. Guardian Security Solutions grew rapidly with ethical leadership principles and revolutionary technology. We implemented profit sharing for all employees, transparent development processes, and strict policies protecting individual intellectual property rights. Our company culture attracted the best talent in cybersecurity, people who wanted to work for an organization that valued innovation and integrity equally. The Guardian AI system continued evolving under my leadership, with new capabilities that surpassed even my original vision. Our threat detection success rates reached 99.7%, and response times decreased to under 15 milliseconds. Major corporations worldwide adopted Guardian AI as their primary cybersecurity solution, generating revenue that supported our continued research and development. At the same international tech summit where Dylan had planned to steal my recognition, I delivered the keynote address about integrity and innovation. The audience included many of the same journalists and industry leaders who had witnessed Dylan's fraudulent presentation 6 months earlier. Innovation requires courage to pursue unprecedented solutions, but it also demands integrity to ensure that credit goes to those who earn it, I told the packed auditorium. Guardian AI exists because of collaborative effort from brilliant developers, but the core breakthrough came from individual persistence in solving problems that others considered impossible. The presentation received a standing ovation and multiple offers for licensing partnerships from companies around the world. But more importantly, it established Guardian Security Solutions as a leader in both technological innovation and ethical business practices. Janet joined Guardian Security Solutions as Chief Operating Officer, bringing her expertise in corporate management and her unwavering commitment to supporting ethical innovation. Marcus returned as our Senior Technical Advisor, helping to build development teams that could handle Guardian AI's continued expansion. Elena Rodriguez became our permanent legal counsel and eventually a close personal friend. Her aggressive protection of my intellectual property rights had been crucial to Guardian Security Solutions' success, and her continued counsel helped us navigate the complex legal landscape of technology licensing. I established the Guardian Innovation Foundation to support female entrepreneurs in technology, providing funding, mentorship, and legal resources to help other women avoid the obstacles I had faced. The Foundation's mission statement reflected lessons learned from my own experience. Innovation belongs to those who create it, regardless of gender, background, or corporate politics. Our first year's funding supported 12 female-led startups developing breakthrough technologies in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and sustainable energy. Each founder retained complete ownership of her innovations while receiving the resources needed to bring revolutionary ideas to market. The personal satisfaction of supporting other innovators was even greater than the financial success of Guardian Security Solutions. Watching brilliant women build companies based on their own innovations, without fear of theft or exploitation, validated my decision to fight for justice rather than accept quietly profitable surrender. But the most meaningful transformation was Dylan's personal growth during his community service requirement. He was assigned to work with a nonprofit organization that provided computer training to underserved communities in Oakland. The experience of actually helping people through technology, rather than exploiting technology for personal gain, began changing his perspective on innovation and success. "I'm sorry," Dylan said when he approached me at a tech industry charity event months later. "I know my apology can't undo the damage I caused, but I want you to know that I understand how wrong I was." "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "I hope your community service work is teaching you something valuable about using technology to help rather than exploit." "It is. I'm actually learning to code properly for the first time. Turns out innovation requires actual work and genuine understanding. That's the first step toward real contribution." Dylan's transformation wasn't complete, but his willingness to acknowledge his mistakes and learn from them suggested that even someone who had committed serious fraud could eventually find redemption through honest effort and authentic contribution. Looking back on the entire experience, I realized that the betrayal, while painful at the time, had led me to build something far more meaningful than I had originally imagined. Guardian Security Solutions wasn't just a successful company. It was proof that ethical leadership and revolutionary innovation could coexist and thrive together. The tech industry needed examples of companies that protected individual rights while fostering collaborative innovation. Our success demonstrated that treating brilliant people with respect and ensuring fair attribution for their contributions created better technology and more sustainable businesses than exploitation and theft. I learned that real success isn't measured by the money you accumulate or the recognition you receive, but by the integrity you maintain while building something that genuinely matters. When someone tries to steal your dreams, the best response isn't revenge, but proving that authentic vision and persistent effort will always be more powerful than imitation and theft. Guardian AI continues protecting digital infrastructure around the world, but more importantly, Guardian Security Solutions continues, proving that innovation flourishes when integrity and collaboration replace exploitation and fraud. That's a legacy worth protecting. Have you ever had someone try to take credit for your work or achievements? How did you handle the situation? And what do you think is the best way to protect your ideas and contributions in competitive environments? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to see more stories about standing up for what's right, and share this with someone who might need inspiration to fight for their own recognition and success. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your authentic innovations and genuine contributions will always be more valuable than anything someone can steal from you. Keep creating, keep innovating, and keep standing up for what belongs to you.